Well, the news comes as allegations of anti-Semitism grip Britain's leftist Labour Party, with New York Magazine asking tonight, can anti-Semitism split Democrats like it split Labour? So are Democrats here in danger of losing Jewish members of their own party over their handling of what Speaker Pelosi called early last month deeply offensive anti-Semitic comments by Congresswoman Omar? Well, today, Pelosi called the latest Omar comments not intentionally anti-Semitic. Let's bring in Zuhdi Jasser from the American Islamic Forum for Democracy and former Republican Senator from Minnesota, Norm Coleman, who's also the national chairman of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Welcome to you both, gentlemen.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll start with you, Senator. What do you make of Nancy Pelosi seeming to soften a bit on her characterization of these comments?
I think she's getting pressure from the left, and that's what this is all about. I actually applauded Speaker Pelosi and Steny Hoyer, the old Democrats, who originally, said, listen, this isn't right. Omar is an anti-Semite. Not everyone that criticizes Israel is anti-Semitic. Not everyone that criticizes someone who's Jewish is anti-Semitic. But if you have someone who repeatedly issues the traffics in the classic tripes, Jews control politicians with money, they control the media, and they have dual loyalties, that person is an anti-Semite. So that's what you have. Pelosi originally criticized it, and then I think had to step back because the far left is pushing back. And unfortunately, that is the base of the Democratic Party today.
Well, and we heard in the Washington Post headline, there were several reports on what happened behind closed doors today. House Democrats erupt in protests over indirect sanction of Representative Omar for alleged anti-Semitism, because they're still saying they're not going to include her name probably in this resolution. The article goes on to say House Democrats erupted in fury Wednesday, challenging leaders over indirectly sanctioning freshman Representative Ilhan Omar. Zuhdi, what do you make of that? I mean, that there would be that much heat that they cannot get together in a uniform voice on this particular issue?
That tells you that the Pelosi-Hoyer leadership is really they'll sacrifice anything at the altar of identity politics. And at the end of the day, we see happening in Congress where the UN went, which is the red-green axis. You have the coalition of the far-left socialists in the world, the dictators that are socialists, along with the Islamists, and sacrifice that is the Jewish community. And I have to tell you, as an American Muslim, it is offensive to me that she's not held to the same standard. If she was not Muslim, there would have been unanimous rebuke, and it wouldn't have even been an issue. But she's being coddled and infantilized, and we're not being treated as equals. She's not being given tough love. In fact, they're denying that it's anti-Semitism. I would ask the Democrats to look up the State Department's report on what new anti-Semitism is. The definition of new anti-Semitism is the generalizations about Israel in a way in which to make the Jewish community appear in a bigoted way against them, and to generalize in conspiracy theories. All the things she's trafficking in are canards of tropes of bigotry against the Jewish community that is classic new anti-Semitism, and the Democrats are making fools out of themselves by not taking the bull by the horns and teaching her on-the-job training, which shouldn't have to be done, of what anti-Semitism is.
Yeah, and this is not the first time. As we've talked about, there are things in the past, but more than one occurrence since she joined Congress. Congressman Cedric Richmond said this. He said, I think there's a big rise in anti-Semitism and racism, and that's a bigger conversation we need to be having, but it starts at 1600 Pennsylvania. It doesn't start with one member out of 435 members of Congress. Senator, what do you make of them pointing the finger back at the president?
Well, I think they're trying to avoid dealing with the reality they have in front of them. And the reality they have in front of them is a member of Congress who is anti-Semitic, who serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. These are, by the way, this is not just a new anti-Semitism. This is classic anti-Semitism. Talking about Jews controlling the media, big money controlling politicians. The new anti-Semitism is what she's also part of supporting, which is the BDS movement, which is a way to say Israel shouldn't exist, so we're going to drive Israel out by boycotting, et cetera, sanctions. And so that's the new anti-Semitism. But what you're hearing from Omar is classic anti-Semitism, and the way to deal with that is classically point the finger at somebody else, and that's all this is about. Democrats have to deal with this, and there is, I'm not, as head of the Republican Jewish Coalition, I'm not the one to counsel Democrats on how to solve their rifts. But clearly, there are Democrats. This is Israel, and support of Israel has been a bipartisan issue. That's changed. That's changed. The far-left Democrat base is moving the Democrat Party away from support of Israel and tolerating this kind of classic anti-Semitism, which really breaks my heart.
Yeah, and Zuhdi, quickly, what do you make of the fact that we're told the resolution is being broadened to include anti-Islamophobia as part of the language?
It's offensive to me that there's a moral equivalency between what the Jewish community has been through post-Holocaust and up to Pittsburgh recently, and to compare that to the, yes, there's some palpable anti-Muslim bigotry, but there's no way to compare it. And in many ways, you water it down. We were told the same with the Black Lives Matter movement, and now we're told if we said all lives matter, that's insulting. And yet, when it's clearly there's no moral equivalency between anti-Semitism and what's been happening post 9/11 to Muslim communities, it's offensive, and we should not insult Muslims by saying that there's some equality there, and it's a very different narrative.
Zuhdi Jasser, thank you very much. And Senator Coleman, great to see you looking so good. Great to have you with us.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you both.